Good morning, Summit families, and happy Monday morning from Miss Rachel's living room. Getting ready to read chapter 3 of Humphrey's adventure. This chapter is called The Portrait of a Hamster. I hope you all had a great weekend, and if you're getting ready for lunch, I hope it's delicious and you eat it all gone and it has some fruits and vegetables. And if it's just a break time in your morning, then sit back and find a comfy spot. Boats, boats, boats. Just about all we talked about in room 26 had to do with boats. There was a math problem about a boat race and a history lesson about Vikings who were great sailors and wore impressive hats with horns on them. There were also lovely vocabulary words. And there was a story. Every day, Mrs. Brisbane read another exciting chapter from the book. Uncle Jolly Roger, who seemed unusually jolly for a pirate, taught Vic and Vi, that's what he called Victor and Violet, all kinds of wonderful things about sailing. They even had a huge run-in with a whale. That part of the story gave I Heard That Kirk a chance to tell us a joke. What do you call a baby whale? A little squirt. We all chuckled about that. So in just a few short days, I went from never thinking about boats to thinking about them all the time. There were so many kinds of wonderful boats, from rowboats that you move with oars and your muscles, to sailboats and tall ships powered by the wind. There were motorboats and yachts, tugboats and ferries, which all have engines. And there were great ships powered by steam. Mrs. Brisbane brought in more books about boats and put up huge posters on the wall. It would be hard to choose a favorite, but the Chinese junk did catch my eye. That boat isn't junk at all, but a beautiful craft with colorful sails. I could almost feel the breeze tickle my whiskers whenever I looked at the picture. In the evenings, I tried to talk to Og about boats and pirates and treasure, but as soon as I bring up the subject, he'd dive into his tank and swim around. Maybe he was trying to tell me he didn't need a boat to make his way through the water. I was a little jealous, although I wouldn't want to be a frog. As nice as Og is, he has googly eyes and green skin, and not so nice fur at all. I occupied my spare time by drawing pictures of boats in my little notebook. I must admit my drawing of the SS Golden Hamster, complete with a hamster flag, was quite impressive. On Friday, it was time to find which one of my friends was going to take me home for the weekend. Do you have your permission slip, Gail? Mrs. Brisbane asked. Gail pulled out a slightly crumpled piece of paper out of her pocket. Here it is, she said with a giggle. I was going home with Gail. Since Gail loved to laugh so much, I was bound to have a fun weekend. Yippee! I was happy she was taking me home with a stack of books about boats. Gail's mom, Mrs. Morgenstein, came to pick us up. She was a colorful human who wore blue jeans, an orange sweater with flowers on it, and a yellow cap with her high red boots. Her hair was in a long half braid down her back. Do you know what, Humphrey? I think I'm going to paint you this weekend, she said. Oh dear, Mrs. Morgenstein seemed like a nice person, but the thought of being covered in wet and messy paint didn't sound so fun to me. It won't be easy, Gail warned her. He won't stand still. Mrs. Morgenstein just smiled. I'll find a way. As she carried me out of the classroom, I squeaked to Og, wish me luck, Augie boy. I don't know what color I'll be when I come back. Maybe green like you. Boing, 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 boing. Og sounded a little upset. Maybe he liked being the only green creature in room 26. When we got to the house, instead of painting me, Gail's mom gave me some carrots and gently set my cage next to Gail's nightstand in her room. On Gail's nightstand in her room. When we were all alone, Gail curled up on her bed with a stack of books. Suddenly, there was a thundering sound, like a herd of wild horses coming into the room. Humphrey! It was Gail's brother, Simon. I'd met him once before when I'd stayed at the house. He was just about as tall as Gail, but she still called him her little brother. "How's it going, Humphrey? What's new? What's happening? Look at your wheel. Can I feed you? Want out of your cage?" That's how Simon talked. Fast, really fast. "Simon, Humphrey's my class hamster. I'll feed him and take care of him," Gail scolded him. "Aw, I just wanted to say hiya, Humphrey." Then Simon made a funny face, sticking his teeth out and holding his hands up in front of him. "See, I'm a hamster." "You're an idiot," said Gail. "Go away." "Okay," said Simon, "but I'll be back." As he hurried out of the room, Gail let out a big sigh. "My brother," she groaned. She made a brother sound like a bad thing, and yet to a hamster who lives alone in a cage with a frog for a neighbor who doesn't even speak, having a brother seemed like a very nice thing. I decided to cheer Gail up with a new trick I had taught myself. Instead of getting on my wheel and spinning in it, I lay down on my back underneath it. When it reached my paws up and made the wheel spin with my feet. You'd better believe Stop Giggling Gail couldn't stop giggling at that until there was a knock at the door and Gail's mom peeked in the room. "May I come in?" Mrs. Morgenstein entered, carrying a stack of boxes with a lot of colorful bags hanging from her arms. "Guess who went shopping today?" she asked. I guessed Gail's mom did, and I was right. She dumped the boxes and bags on Gail's bed. "Wait till you see," she said. Excitedly opening the boxes, I got to see the cutest outfits. "Look at this darling skirt." She held up a skirt with blue, pink, and yellow and green stripes on it. "It will look great on you." Gail wrinkled her nose. "But Mom, I like pants for school. I mean, at recess." "Well, these tights go underneath." Mrs. Morgenstein held up a bright pink pair. She rummaged around in the bag. "I bought 3 skirts. One with stripes, one with stars, and one with flowers." "But Mom, I don't like skirts," Gail repeated. "Try something new, dear." Mrs. Morgenstein pulled out a fuzzy-looking sweater, like this. Personally, I like fuzzy things, like hamsters, but Gail just ran her hand over the sweater and said it looked itchy. "Just try it," Gail's mom said, and she reached over and opened a box. "I had another brilliant idea," she announced. "We're going to redo your room." Gail blinked hard. "Again?" In with the new and out with the old," her mom said with a smile. "But we just painted it last year," Gail reminded her, "and I like the blue with white stripes." 2 years ago, her mom said. "It's something we can do together, and it will be fun. We'll give it a whole new look. You and I could paint a mural. We could paint the whole room like the universe with all the planets, or the whole room could look like the ocean, or..." Gail sighed. I just got used to my room the way that it is." Mrs. Morgenstein reached out and patted Gail's face. "Honey, try and open up to new things. Change is good." Gail didn't answer. She just stared down at her blue bedspread. Her mom frowned. "Tell you what, I'll leave these samples here for you to look at them. And think about a mural, okay? Just think about it." "Sure, Mom," Gail replied. Gail didn't seem very excited about painting her room, but I just thought it was a much better idea than painting me. After Mrs. Morgenstein left, Gail stared at her striped walls for a while. She pushed the paint samples aside and picked up one of her books. She turned a lot of pages and then suddenly held up her book to my cage. "Look at this ship, Humphrey," she said. It was a picture of a lovely sailboat with billowing white sail. "I like it," I squeaked. I know that all Gail heard was squeak, 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 but she seemed to understand. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she asked. Yes, I agreed. Gail sighed again. Sometimes I'd just like to sail away on a ship and go far, far away, she said. To Brazil, I said with a squeak. Maybe it was more of a shriek. You could come with me, said Gail. Then she went back to her bed and her stack of books. Really, Gail's family couldn't have been nicer to me. Great snacks, a great cage clean, no jokes about my poo. Still, I was nervous about being painted. You see, I'm a golden hamster, which means I have very beautiful glossy golden fur. I never really wanted to be another color. Not red, not blue, not green. I'm not sure there are any hamsters in those colors. Humphrey, you didn't eat your carrots, Mrs. Morgenstein said later that night. I didn't have the heart to tell her every time I saw orange carrots, I thought about being painted orange. Orange is a very nice color for a sweater or a book or a hat, even a pair of socks. It's not a good color for a hamster, at least in my opinion. Hi, Humphrey. Want to spin on your wheel? Go on, spin it. Want to climb your tree branch? Come on, climb. It was morning and Simon was back. As much as I liked Simon, it was hard to keep up with him. He was so excited about everything. I wanted to make him happy, so I hopped on my wheel. This time, Gail didn't even seem to notice. She just sat on her bed staring at the pictures of the boats in the books. Out, Mrs. Morgenstein said as she came into Gail's room. I'm here to paint him. Oh, Mom, Gail groaned. Can't we just take a picture? Anyone can do that, her mom answered. This is more original. Can I paint him too? Simon asked. Please? Mrs. Morgenstein smiled. Of course, we'll all paint him. Eek! If they all painted me, I'd end up looking like a rainbow and probably a soggy mess. Og wouldn't even recognize me when I got back. Okay, said Gail, but she didn't sound happy about it at all. Soon, my cage was on Mrs. Morgenstein's kitchen table. Simon, Gail, and their mom all sat around with paper and paints and stared at me. Mr. Morgenstein, who seemed more kind and sensible, said he had errands to run and hurried out of the house before the painting began. Okay, artists, Mrs. Morgenstein said, feel free to paint Humphrey any way you like. He doesn't even have to look like a hamster. But I'd prefer to look like a hamster, I squeaked. A nice golden one with lovely fur and no paint at all, thank you very much. What's he squeaking about? Simon asked. I don't know, but please hold still, Humphrey, his mom said. I tried to hold still, but my whiskers were quivering and my legs were shaking. I closed my eyes, waiting to feel the wet paint glopping on my fur. But my fur felt safe and fine. So after a while, I opened my eyes and saw the three Morgensteins putting lots of lovely paint on paper. They weren't painting me at all. They were painting pictures of me. Phew, phew, phew. I was so relieved, I hopped on my wheel for a lovely spin. Humphrey, hold still, Gail told me. Oops, sorry, I squeaked. I jumped off my wheel and held still, as a lively hamster can. After a few minutes, though, my back legs started itching and my nose started twitching, and I had a little cramp in my front paw. Luckily, Mrs. Morgenstein said, well, I think I've captured your little friend. How about you two? She held up her painting to show Gail and Simon. I couldn't get a good look at it, but I could see there wasn't anything golden about her hamster. There was yellow and blue and maybe some purple. I think this shows the true spirit of Humphrey. I didn't have time to think about what my true spirit was, yellow, blue, and purple, because Simon waved his picture right in front of my face. Here you are, Humphrey. Simon's painting showed an orange blob with all kinds of swirly lines, but no hamster that I could see. Mrs. Morgenstein leaned in to examine the picture closely. It's very interesting, Simon. Tell me about it. It's all squiggly because he was spinning on his wheel like this. Simon jumped out of his chair and began twirling in a circle. Perfectly wonderful. I see his eye in the center, said his mother. You can stop spinning now. Then she turned to Gail. Let's see your Humphrey. Gail held up her paper and showed a perfectly wonderful picture of me. I had 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 front legs and paws, 2 back legs and paws, and some whiskers and lovely golden fur. Oh, said Gail's mother. It looks like him, doesn't it? Gail asked. Mrs. Morgenstein nodded. Yes, it looks a lot like him. It's just, Gail seemed upset and not at all giggly. What's wrong with it? It's fine, honey, her mom said. I just like you to paint what you feel, not what you see. Like Simon's picture, you can see Humphrey's energy, can't you? Actually, Simon's picture made me feel a little queasy, while Gail's picture of me made me feel quite handsome. Mrs. Morgenstein patted Gail's hand. It's a very good picture, Gail. After her mom and brother left, Gail sat and stared at her picture for a while. You're such a pretty color, Humphrey. Why would I want to paint you blue? She asked. I didn't have an answer, but it was time for me to squeak up. I love your picture, I told her. I'll never know if she understood because the phone rang and Gail ran off to answer it. The life of a pirate, be a work of art, he bucks. From the Jolly Roger's Guide to Life. All right, that was the end of chapter 3. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and you'll hear from me tomorrow with chapter 4. Bye, friends.